All right, so hello and welcome back, everyone. Dr. Sears back again with another lecture for MIET 312 Surface Mining here at Bluefield State University. And today we're going to talk a little bit about permitting. So throughout the course, we kind of put the cart before the horse a little bit, so to speak. Permitting is one of those things that it has to be done. Right? And sometimes it may be you doing it. It may or may not be. It depends on what uh, you know career path you end up taking. Some places they do this in house. Some contracted out to consultants. There's various ways that different companies do their permitting, but we're going to go just have a little run through the handbook and talk about what it contains and what kind of permits you might need, at least in the state of West Virginia for the time being. Some of these things are state specific. In this case, the DEP controls West Virginia DEP in the state of West Virginia. Is the controlling agency. When it comes to most of the environmental protection that occurs in the state. So, like I said, this handbook, provides, a guide to West Virginia's permitting process, and how that works. It contains sections on all of the, permit applications, and, including, some of them that you're going to see more often than others, right? Notice of intent to prospect, surface mine applications, permit amendments, maybe a permit for a dam. IBRs are pretty common, incidental boundary revisions, that sort of thing. So all those are covered in this handbook. And then there's also a significant amount of reference information as well. They have information on blasting, bonding, so the amount of bond and how that's calculated for the amount of disturbed acreage that you'll have. So all of that. They have excess spoil disposal and approximate original contour calculations in here, even showing how to calculate volumes and that sort of thing, and a number of other things here. So a lot of information. For a greenfield project, you typically start with a prospect permit. Said, this is what you would need if you were going to, put in a core hole, something like that. Or other techniques where you may excavate, say, around the outcrop, right, to get coal sections and whatnot. The application fee as of now is $2,000. And you don't have to advertise this if you're prospecting less than 250 tons. Advertising means that you actually have to take out advertisements in the local newspaper. Some of you have probably seen this before. When you go into the advertisement sections, you'll see little mine maps and location maps and permit applications and that sort of thing. So not required unless you're doing more than 250 tons, in which case that comment period is 15 days. And this covers, like I said, anything that's surface or sort of underground, gathering of this like geophysical data by any sort of technique. That's where you would need a prospect permit. Also, these come up throughout over time as companies tend to drill more holes over time. So you might actually need these relatively frequently. The next step would be a surface mine application. That's the big one, right? That ends up being multiple volumes and that sort of thing. There's an application fee for that as well, $3,500. And then it has to be advertised in newspapers 4 times with a 30-day comment period. So when you apply for these permits, do you take into account that it takes a substantial, significant amount of time, one, to do the permit itself, do all the work that goes into it, and then, have it, go through the approval process, go through the advertisement process, and that sort of thing. So, it takes a significant amount of time to do this. The one example that I can give is that I did do one of these surface mine applications, and I did finish it. And it took me, myself, working full time, I'm going to say at least 90% of the time. There'd be some other times that I would maybe working on some other project, but the vast majority of that 6 months is what it took me. 6 months is what it took me to do the application. And that was, 18 years ago or so. So it's significant. It's likely that it's gotten significantly longer. Permits and loadouts, they have their own permits as well, and sections of rules in the regulations. So that's in here. At some point, you may need to apply for a significant or insignificant permit revision. Those have to go through the same advertisements, okay? And some examples of significant revisions, okay, would be changing the post-mining land use, changing underground mining area, changing underground to include adding mining underneath a watershed. So if you're mining underneath a watershed not addressed in the original application, or any sort of dwelling structures or streams. If the mining method is changed, if you're using fly ash for any purpose other than a soil amendment. So if you're putting fly ash, for example, say the pit floor, I think that would count as a purpose other than an amendment to the soil. Disposal of tires on site is required. It's a revision. And refuge not with the originally approved disposal site. So those are all significant. There are also insignificant revisions, but we'll just, anything that's like less than that, there's an easier way to, you don't have to do quite as much. The same goes for incidental boundary revisions, or IBRs. Some of those can be significant and some of those aren't. So what is an IBR? And that basically is a minor change to the permit boundary into either non-coal areas or where any coal extraction is incidental. Okay, so say you need to change the boundary slightly and you're putting in like some sort of fill or whatever, and there is a little bit of coal there where you're going to put the fill, you can do an IBR, get that approved, mine the coal, put the fill in, that sort of thing. So the coal that's being mined is incidental and secondary, to the intended purpose. The intended purpose is a fill, and that sort of thing. There's also, I don't think I mentioned it in here. I don't. You can also do incidental mining with other projects, for example, construction projects or road building, that sort of thing. You can get permits for that as well. Examples of significant IBRs. So your disturbances within 100 feet of a right-of-way. Disturbance in like a new drainage area or watershed, if it's new, or even different drainage within the original development area. To add and delete, material in a valley fill, or geologic variations, punch out from underground operations. If you intend to do a punch out, you can't really do a punch in unless the original portals need to be moved, but punching out's different. Punching out of a mountain and into a different mountain will require a new permit application. So if you're going from one to the next, which does happen, I've seen it both with roads, so you could actually just kind of drive out along the pit and then go back in. I've also seen bridges, and then of course belt structure, that sort of thing. So there are several incidents where you would punch out of a mountain and into another, and then they may not be approved for adding a coal seam, not in the original permit, unless, like I said, it's incidental to the construction of whatever. You can't, mine another seam that was not originally included. Insignificant IBRs, so it'd be something where you have a geologic variation that's not significant. If you need to relocate your a portal adjacent to the original opening in the same development area, disturbed area, that sort of thing, you can do. You can, we talked about these others, what IBRs may be approved for or not approved for, and those are the same. Like I said, bonding is covered in here, so the disturbed area has to be bonded. And as part of the Surface Coal Mine Reclamation Act, you have to ensure with, there's sort of multiple means, to do this, multiple monetary instruments, but you have to provide a monetary assurance that you will complete reclamation of the land, right? So that can cover either the entire permit area at once, or you can do incremental bonding. Most of the places I've worked at were big enough that you did incremental bonding, right? So you would have a portion of the permit that's bonded, and you can mine in that area, and it's got to be a minimum of, I think, $10,000. Okay, yeah, there it is, $10,000. But so you bond part of it, you mine it, and then you bond the next before you mine it. But it doesn't have to all be up front, right? Because a lot of times you're looking at, properties that may take multiple years to mine, right? So you don't necessarily want all that tied up in the beginning. They have a significant section on guidelines for blasting in the manual. So it also lists all of the laws and applicable sections where, you might find, what the blast regulations are for blasting near structures, air blast limits, dams and impoundments, so all that's kind of in here. And there are different, levels for each here. So that's in there. They also have guidelines on excess spoil display placement. So, we talked about this in class quite a bit. They go into a bit more detail in here in the process for, achieving the approximate original contour. There's also information in for steep slopes and still having, determining what these excess spoil quantities are. That is found, in here as well. So it considers the volume displaced by maintaining performance standards in some of the calculations, right? So you have this, in this case, your, original slope, and then your backfill, okay, it's at a, this 2-to-1 ratio in this case, which is stable, okay, and then you have, this, drainage. Where did my laser pointer go? Okay, we have drainage here, right? And so we have, it takes into account this red area, which is backfill displaced for the drainage and sediment control, right? So you've had a ditch here that is being filled in, And then you've got the road, which also has this, last bit of backfill. So this is kind of how, the backfill is benched, or not benched, but how it's regraded and the volumes that you're concerned with. Okay, when you're, calculating the amount of, fill material you're putting in here, right? It gives a better idea of what, a reclaimed bench looks like, and how this sort of, this placed backfill is placed here. And then you've got this bit of extra, that kind of, goes on top. You get your diversion ditch included in here, roads, berms, gives a nice, figure for that. And once again, the volumes that you're concerned with when it comes to, the reclamation activities. And it's really based on, all based on sort of material balance, right? No matter how you're looking at this, if you're looking at a mountaintop removal type situation, and that sort of thing, or, back previously when we were looking at, the contour strip, it's all based on material balance. How much material are you removing? How much does that material swell? When you place the backfill, you're placing it in a stable fashion. Can you get back to the approximate original contour? The techniques, to do some of that are in here as well, especially with, like I said, steep topography, right? There's also additional information on dams and impoundments, land and ownership control, post-mining land use. What are you going to use the land for? Is it going to be pasture land? It's going to be forest, timber. There's a number of approved post-mining land uses. Which is it going to be? What's best suited for your property? Refuse disposal, right? There's more information on that in there than what I covered, but roads are also in there. Building roads that are contained within the property, okay, so that aren't access roads. And the requirements for those, and then of course subsidence is in here as well. Okay, so this is for both not just surface mining, but also underground mines, right? So even underground mines are required to have a surface mine application that's approved for the disturbances on the surface, right? The portals and that sort of thing. So this is information that we're discussing in the surface mining class, but it also does have aspects related to underground mining as well. And so with that, I'm going to close out this presentation, this lecture on what is contained within the West Virginia DEP Permitting Handbook, and how you can use that handbook, to find a lot more information on like I said, the permitting process and what permits you need for surface mines and surface areas of underground mines in the state of West Virginia. So with that, we'll see you next time.